Welcome back to He Can Fix Anything. Today I'm going to show you how to change the spark plugs on this Prius. Now this particular Prius is a 2004 model, but it's a generation 2, so that means what I'm teaching you today will be applicable from 2004 all the way up to 2009. And the principles can be applied to a lot of different model years. So here are the tools you're going to need for this job. I ended up using both a 3/8 and a 1/4 inch ratchet, a variety of different lengths. That's important, is to have a few different lengths of extensions. Again, 3/8 and 1/4 inch. 10 millimeter sockets. I end up using the shallow and a deep well socket. This is a 1/4, this is a 3/8. And then you're going to need a 5/8 spark plug socket. This is critical for changing the job. And a flathead screwdriver was very helpful in disconnecting one of the connectors. WD-40 to put in the spark plug socket so that those spark plugs come easily out of it. And then a good source of light. This one sticks on the hood, and then this one sticks on my head. Now the first thing we need to do to get to the spark plugs, which are down underneath here, is to get a few things out of the way. We have this relay box, we have this air cleaner. Both of those are going to need to move. Now this is a pretty straightforward job and should only take about 30 minutes to an hour depending on your skill level and your access to tools. Now, I was able to diagnose this problem using the Autel scanner. This is the AP200, and it's worth its weight in gold. It's a bi-directional scanner, and what that means is not only does it give you information, it can give you snapshots of information, give you live information, but you can also go the other direction and do things like bleed the brakes, program keys, and things like that. And I paid about 55 bucks for this on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description below. In fact, everything I talk about here today, I'll put links in the description below so you can pick it up really easy. But this was great. You can see, look up at the corner of the screen and you'll see a link to the video where I do a review of this scanner, and I'm really impressed with it. Now there's nothing worse than doing a job and not having the proper light. This job doesn't require a lot like I would if I was under a car, but I need all the help I can get with these old eyes. And so the two things that are always in my toolbox is this headlamp, and then I just picked up this really nifty LED light, and it's going to really help get the light on the situation. So the first thing you're going to do is remove this relay box by taking out two 10 millimeter screws, two 10 millimeter bolts. Well, it looks like this one is already broken. The bolt's super tight. Maybe that's why it's broken. Get that out of the way. Next thing is to remove this air filter box. The next thing you do is to loosen a couple of clamps and a couple of bolts. There should be a clamp on this, but there isn't, and so that's going to come off pretty easy. And I'll get that clamp replaced at some point in the future. I don't have one here today, but that definitely needs to be on there. There's another clamp down under here that connects the air filter to the engine, and then you have two 10 millimeter bolts that you'll loosen. I'm going to have to get a different length of extension. I pulled that extension off, going with a little shorter one, and that should make the difference on being able to get in there. There we go. Okay. Gonna loosen these two 10 millimeter bolts, take those out. Okay. And this should just slip off. There we go. We'll just move that out of the way so that it's clear. Now you'll need to remove each of these, and this one, they each have a 10 millimeter bolt that holds them in. Nice and tight. I'm gonna go ahead and crack all of them loose. Yeah, and I'm gonna change to get a shorter, well, I'm gonna take this extension off and get a deep well socket. Well, that took a few minutes. That's why I said at the beginning of the video, depending how long this is going to take will depend on your skill level and access to tools. It took me a little bit to find this 10mm deep well socket, but I just noticed that this bolt its head is rounded off. So this job just became a lot more complicated. So just to reinforce that, I don't know if you can see it. This is a 12-point socket, which is not ideal. It has its advantages. This is a 6-point socket. See, it has 6 sides. Bolts have 6 sides. So when you have an issue where that's a little bit, where the bolt's a little bit rounded off, this one was jumping, I was able to put this 6-point socket on and put a ton of downward pressure on it and crack it loose. So thank you, Jesus, for that one. Whew, that would have been a disaster. And then these just pull straight up out of here, and that's actually where it connects on to the spark plug, which is way down in. Fortunate thing, these are all different lengths, so you don't have to worry about getting them mixed up. The only advice I would give is to pull one spark plug at a time, and that way you don't risk of some of this debris that always ends up on top of an engine falling down in the cylinder. That would be very bad. So take one spark plug out, put one spark plug back, and then move on to the next one. Now this one over here, the way the wire is situated, it's short, so I'm actually going to have to pull. Let me move the camera over here. I'm going to actually have to pull this plug off of it to be able to get it out. So get this push down. I don't know if you can see it. You got to push the end of this down to unlock it, and then this will push it back. There we go. That's off. And this can come out. All right, now to take these out, you want to get a 5/8 spark plug socket. It's important you use a spark plug socket because it has a little rubber grommet inside that when you're lifting it up will hold onto the end of the spark plug and pull it out. And it also, when you're installing, that little rubber grommet helps prevent you from breaking the spark plug. And so you just spin it a little bit, and then once you catch it, you slide it down, take it out. Now in this particular one, the diagnostic tool said that cylinder number 4 was misfiring a lot. Wow, look at that. A lot of corrosion on there. I mean, definitely these needed to be changed. This would be either cylinder number 2 or number 3. I don't know which way these count, but I'll be curious when we get to one of the two ends if it doesn't look pretty bad. But this definitely needs to be changed. Now for this job, this is not my thing. I'm not a Ford guy, and so Motorcraft was not my first choice. I was going to put, originally I was thinking I would use the Nippon, the factory replacement Iridium spark plugs. But those are about 10 to 12 bucks a piece, and this is an old car with 200,000 miles on it, and the owner did not want to drop that kind of money. And so I was going to get Bosch Platinums, which would be my second choice, and they were out of stock. So I ended up getting these Motorcraft, which are also platinum plugs. They're not Iridium, but platinum is better than copper. And they're not a bad spark plug, so that's what we decided to put in. And they were about five and a half bucks a piece. Now, these come pre-gapped, so you don't have to worry about changing the gap on those. They also come with a washer for getting a good seal. Make sure you put this washer on before you install the spark plug. Otherwise, you're going to be dealing with a leaky spark plug, and that'll cause a variety of problems. And if a mechanic doesn't know that was left off, they're going to have a tough time chasing it down. So you just slip this back in here, like that. See, doesn't fall out. And then drop it down into the hole. Now I'm sure there's a torque specification for these. I do not have access to my torque wrench, And so I'm just going to tighten this by hand. This is about a 2 grunt tightening. And so just putting it on there, get it down seated. Okay, 1, 2. There you go. Do not over tighten these. They will cause a problem. And then just patiently pull up on that. Otherwise you'll pull the socket off. Not a big deal, but patiently pull that out and it'll come off. Now normally I start at one end and work to the other, and I have no idea why I didn't do that. But I'm gonna go ahead and correct my mistake now. Start here, and we'll see if this one looks worse than the one at the opposite end of the engine. Maybe then we can just look at it and tell which one is number 4. If you want to see how bad it's misfiring, all you have to do is take a look at that video that I showed you earlier when I was diagnosing this problem. And I have the live data on that video that will show the misfiring problem on cylinder number 4. This one also looks pretty worn out. It doesn't look terrible, not as bad as the one I just took out, but there is some buildup on there. That one looks pretty bad too. A lot of buildup of material on there. Okay, couple little pro tips for you. One is when you're putting this together, make sure that this little catch is lined up with that hole, because if you put it this way, it pulls off really easy. Even with that, I was having trouble getting it out, so I would say I probably should put a little more WD-40 in there. The other thing I did to get it out is, instead of just pulling straight up, I actually pulled it to the side a little bit as I was pulling it up and put it in a little bit of a bind, and so it slipped off easier that way. Okay, well, this one actually, as you can see, it actually looks a little bit oily, which is a concern. So it's not as much of a carbon buildup on there, but an oil buildup in that cylinder. And so that could also be something that could foul the next plug a little more quickly. That's not a good sign. And then the other thing I'm seeing here almost looks like water, which, if there's water in that cylinder, that means very likely that the head gasket could be leaking. That's pretty concerning. So we're gonna have to get this back together, drive it, and keep an eye on that. But yeah, that definitely looks like, you can see it here too, it looks like it's got some water on it. Not good. One thing I noticed is these are NGK plugs, so that tells me they're not the original plugs, as those were Nippon brand, but they are Japanese plug. Good quality. I wouldn't have any problem putting NGK in here. And these are the Iridium plugs, so they're the correct type of plug versus a copper plug or the platinum plug, but just less expensive than the original equipment. Try to take a little look down in there. Yeah, you can see some water there, but it's on the outside, so I'm not really sure what that means. From that video, it looks like the water is on the outside of the cylinder, where the plug seats, which I'm going to have to do some research. One thing about the Prius is they have a pretty devoted fan base, And so there's a group that I've been able to work with called Prius Chat. It has just been fantastic, a great knowledge base and helpful people in that. So I'm going to send this video clip and some of these photos to that group and get some feedback on what they think it could be. But you can see there's water on the outside of this socket that is from that hole. So it's just a little bit strange to me, but we'll see what we find out. So now the plugs have been changed, and all we need to do is kind of put everything back in reverse order. See, as I'm looking at the underside, all of these have, I don't know if you can really see it or not. Let me see if I can get this up here as zoomed. I don't know if you can see it, but all of these have a little bit of moisture on the inside of this rubber seal, this rubber grommet. Now to get this clipped back on, can't get to the back side of it. This could be a little bit of fun. There we go. Got it. Just had to kind of, let me move my camera. Just kind of had to reach in here and pull it up with the tips of my fingers, and it clipped right on. So that's the hardest part about what we're doing. So we'll get each of these put back in place. I'm going to make sure they're seated on the spark plug. Try to keep all the dirt out. Try not to get any dirt in there. You want to keep those sealed up. And just put the bolts back in. Tighten them up with the 10mm ratchet. Again, this is threading into aluminum. They do not need to be tight, just a little bit snug, just like that. Not putting your shoulder into it. If you're worried about being too strong, then choke up on it. You know, don't hold it out here, hold it up close. Just like that. And then next we'll need to put the air box back in with the filter, and we'll need to put this relay box back in here. Now, one oversight I made was when I took this apart, I noticed how dirty it was in here. It would have been a good idea while this is open to go ahead and spray that down, open this up, and get that cleaned out a little bit. But this air box is easy enough to take off. I mean, it's just literally 2 minutes or less to take that off, so I can come back later on and get this throttle body cleaned. So you can see here, this is the clamp that we loosened up before with the 10mm tightener on it. So we'll need to put that back. Just have to line it back up here, and it should slip right on. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Make sure those bolts are lined up, which they are. Put those back in. Same as before, just snug it down nice. Does not need to be tight, you just want it to be seated. Just like that. And then get this other socket on here. Lined up. And we'll tighten this one down. Same thing, just snug, nice and solid. This one I'll have to find a clamp for, but for now we'll just slip it right back on. Okay, that part's done. And the last part is just put this relay box back in. As I pointed out, this side is broken. In fact, I found, where'd it go? Down on the engine. I think that's the broken piece off of here. So can't redo that one. Oh, both sides are broken. So I'm gonna go ahead and just snug this on. Well, I had a reminder pop up on my phone and that cut off the video, but all I did was tighten that last bolt and I'm done. So all I need to do now is to take it for a test drive. But first, I'm gonna go ahead and plug that scan tool back in, the Autel diagnostic tool. I'm gonna clear the codes, then I'm gonna take it for a long test drive, get the engine nice and warm, take it out on the highway, because that's when the problem started, is when the engine was hot. And so I'm gonna do that, and we'll hopefully not have this problem for a long time, and the owner will have a different car by the time it needs new spark plugs. I really hope this video was helpful and that you value it. If you do, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you want some more videos related to the Prius, check out these videos on this screen.